Oh dear.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ascension podcast for what date is it today? The 23rd. Number
Yeah,
one,
23rd.
episode one.
Number one episode.
Number one, episode one. How to survive your
You
first
are
night.
you are number one. Yeah, exactly.
I'm joined today by Homeless Alien, the guy on the right.
Hello, hello.
That's him. And, this is a new sort of podcast we're going to be doing. Weekly, bi-weekly, we don't really know. This is sort of just a pilot, really, and we're gonna
Yeah,
see
sort of
how
ad
it
hoc.
goes. Yeah. It's just a sort of spur of the moment idea. So we have some bullet points we're going to be talking about. And we're just going to discuss shit for like a while, and then take some questions from the beautiful audience. And
Yeah, probably like an hour and a half ish.
yeah, that'll probably be about right. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. So, if you want to introduce yourself, Alien, just say a bit about what you're about, and
I don't know. I'm an inexperienced game developer. I software developer as a full-time job at the moment. Play lots of games. It's about all you need to know for this podcast, I suppose.
yeah. What star sign are you?
I couldn't even tell you if I wanted to.
That's what we're going to be asking people every time they come on as guests. That is like
that's the trial question, is it?
Yeah, that's the trial question.
I quite like the question, what type of rock is your favourite rock, as well. It's always a good one.
Sedimentary, my dear Watson.
Nice. See, that's a good answer.
Yeah, that is a good answer. Chat, let us know if the audio balancing is good enough, I suppose. Yeah, so as for me, I'm Vex. Most people know me. If you don't, then you're dumb. I'm a student.
Rude.
Yeah, well. Yeah, I'm a student. I do computer science as sort of my main, and then maths and media studies. I'm 18, so a little bit younger, but yeah, I that's pretty much it. I haven't been to university or anything yet, so I don't have the experience that Alien has, but I have the sort of experience of playing games for the last 7 years or something.
Casual.
Yeah, very casual. Some people say I do it too much. That's yeah. Okay, so yeah, I think the first things first. Alien's a bit louder. Yeah, that makes sense. I'll turn Alien a bit down. There we go. So yeah, I think the first things first. We're just going to be talking about the game that we've been playing the most recently. The game that's in the thumbnail right there, as you can see on your beautiful screens. We're going to be talking about The Division 2.
Indeed.
Right. Now, bit of backstory. The Division 1, great game. I absolutely loved it. I played shit tons of that game. I think I have something like 700 hours plus or something like that. Which is like, more people have played more, right? But I think Aliens played it a bit as well.
It's still enough to
to have like
say you know what's going on.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I think that gets you that.
Yeah, so yeah, the Division 1, I played a lot of it, had a good balance of PvE, PvP stuff. And yeah, so it's been really fun sort of seeing how the Division 2 is improving and like how they launched, because if you remember, Alien, the Division 1 launch was pretty abhorrent, wasn't it? If you remember.
Well, this is one of the things. Like a lot of people look back on it, and they're in two camps, right? They're either the people that started the game, got to end game, sort of played it for a little while, and then were like done because they didn't like how hardcore the Dark Zone was, and there wasn't really any PvE end game activity that was better than the Dark Zone, right?
Yeah.
So those people just turned off there, and then there was the other people who were like super hardcore into it, right? And they didn't experience the like issues that the original game had at launch because they were ahead of the curve, right? They didn't have the issue of the Dark Zone being super difficult because they had all of the sets. They were on curve with all their gear, right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't as harsh for them, right? So you get two camps that have completely different opinions about the launch of Division 2. Now, that's not to say that, like, analytically looking back on it, that there are some issues, and I think a lot of people, like most people at this point, agree that there were some pretty glaring issues. But as you say, I think they've done a lot to address it this time round.
Yeah, definitely. I think the Division. So yeah, I think sort of empirically, the Division 1's launch was fairly buggy. I don't know what it is, but I always have a really, really good, experience with the game on launch. Like, you were having a lot of crashes, I think, and other people are having lots of crashes, AMD superiority. This stream is sponsored by AMD. Other CPUs are not available.
It is not.
It's not. It definitely isn't. But if AMD in 5 years' time, when this has got 6 total viewers, want to, reach out to us, Go right ahead. No, but yeah, yeah. So I mean, I've been really lucky. Other people haven't been so lucky, right? But I think statistically, this has been a much more stable launch, and compared to other AAA games,
Well, this is probably something we should discuss, right? Is
yeah,
the state of what what constitutes a AAA launch in 2019, right?
yeah.
Because back 10 years ago, let's say, when I would go into fucking Game or Game Station at the time, I don't know if they
Oh,
exist
Game
anymore.
Station,
I think
rest
they
in
got
peace.
bought.
Yeah, they got
Yeah.
deleted.
Yeah, and there are a couple of others as well, like Electronics Boutique, that you won't remember them. They
Oh,
were
I don't know. Yeah, no.
they were on the way out when I was sort of getting into gaming. So yeah, but like you'd go into one of these shops and you go look at like a game in a box on a shelf, and like that experience of going into a shop, the game being in like an actual box on a shelf, and you paying your actual money to a human being. Although, like, don't want to sound like I'm like 70 or something. That conveyed sort of like a reassurance that game was like done. It was working. That you weren't going to have any issues with it. You just picked the game up and you went. And you paid like quite a lot for games like that because they were like that was what you were paying for, is that quality. But like over time, there's been this massive like shift almost where. Because I genuinely put it down to the fact that indies have done so well with the ability to sort of like connect to a community and say, look, I'm only like a studio of 4 guys or whatever.
Yeah.
I can't fix all of this at once, right?
Yeah, like the layman sort of has the layman has a sort of, I guess, rapport with indie studios. I suppose like people respect indie studios.
Area scan.
Yeah, and I think what's happened is the AAA studios have seen this sort of, like get in touch with your community, buy yourself some goodwill, and you can sort of push down the line. They've seen this style and they've tried to apply it to their sort of, ecosphere. And I just, as much as like it does kind of work for the indies, it can't be allowed to work for the AAA industry because of how much more money those games are, right? Like, for example, we were talking just a bit before the screen, like Satisfactory has just come out in early access. And that,
Indeed,
I mean, it's riddled with bugs, but I don't have absolutely any ill will towards any of the ones that I've experienced because I know, A, it's in early access, and B, I've paid 20 quid for it. So it's like a third of the price of a normal AAA game.
Yeah. And it's like they've got like a smaller community, so a smaller development team, so you have to sort of, I guess, not put up with it, but sort of,
Yeah, but like it's the fact that you pay less money allows you to give them that grace. I think it's like it's the fact that if I were to pay 40 quid more, I'd expect it to be finished. You know what I mean? I'd expect it to be a like fully rounded product. But anyway, we digress. So yeah, like that's one of the things I think is worth noting about AAA games, and especially with The Division. Like this is a AAA game, and it is quite buggy, and it's something to observe. Like even though this is a good game, it's still following that trend and that like new AAA sort of formula, and I don't know how I feel about that, honestly.
Yeah, I think the thing is with big AAA games recently, they've sort of lost step, like they've become out of step with the community. Like games like Fallout 76, which is, notoriously buggy, instead of the developers sort of putting somebody dedicated to talking to the community and saying, okay, yeah, we'll admit this, wasn't our best release, we could do a lot better, here's what we're going to do, here's our action plan. They had to wait, like, I think about a month before we actually had any community stuff on Reddit at the very least, any sort of conversation with developers or Bethesda as a whole.
About what's happening.
And there was no, roadmap or any sort of outline for fixes, and I think if you're going to release a bugged game, at least have the good, like, grace to hold your hands up, admit, like, this game is, a little bit bugged or whatever. Give us some time to iron it out. We promise we'll make it worth your while. Here's some cool content that's coming to keep the players entertained. And that's something that definitely The Division 2 has done. Even though it's not, like, a buggy game on launch, they have nothing to sort of say sorry for. They've still got that community touch. Like, there's people answering questions on basically every Reddit thread, no matter how small.
The state of the game as well.
The state of the game is amazing, and that entire show and the way that the developers keep up with their community and ensure that everybody, has questions answered, or they have an issue that might be unique to them, but the developers are still going to look at it and see if they can give a response to it if it's needed.
Yeah,
And I
I
think
think you're right that style, that like I don't know, sort of like real, like true community management basically
yeah,
is something that goes a long way in the games industry. Like for example, Sea of Thieves did the same thing. Although enough can be said about that game, but like they did
yeah,
a really good job of like keeping people in the loop and like updating regularly and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah. I don't. I mean, I think honestly, the Division 2 has done really well in terms of its launch. It was pretty stable. They had 2 betas to iron out stuff, which is good, and then they did a day 3 or day 2 patch, whatever it was, which is pretty good. I think the Division 1 there actually was a day 1 patch. I think I do remember there were still some things they wanted to release the game on time, but they wanted to roll over some stuff from the betas. So I think they did have a day 1 patch, which is pretty good. Or day 0, depending on how you look at like launch day patch,
Yeah,
which was towards the end of the day, but still. And
yeah,
yeah, I think how they've touched with the community, they've made a really successful game. They haven't tried to cheap everyone out by sort of pointing developers towards the you need to work on stuff that will only give us money, right? And
hmm
instead what they've done is they've said, yeah, okay, here's this stuff, and then here's some more cool stuff that we'll be able to show you, and stuff like World Tier 5 coming out soon. All the developers are sort of talking about that. And yeah, I think honestly the launch was really high quality compared to other games, other AAA games that and like games as a service from people like Bethesda with Fallout 76 and EA and BioWare with Anthem.
Anthem.
And Anthem was notoriously like I think Fallout was notoriously shit, but then Anthem was like the little cousin of notoriously shit. Like it sort of
I actually think there's a lot to digest in those two things, and we'll talk about it later. But I think
yeah, definitely.
there's this weird recipe that AAA's are trying to get right at the moment with games of the surface, and from an outside perspective, it seems a lot simpler than AAA's make it seem. And I think Fallout 76, Anthem, to an extent, other games like Destiny and stuff have all failed in different regards for different reasons. And I think we'll discuss that in a bit, but
Yeah.
for now, we'll stick with Division 2.
So sticking with Division 2 then, what are your sort of overall thoughts on? You play TD1, right? So you have some thoughts on improvements and
Yeah,
like
so
the technical
I
stuff.
was in the camp of people who got in at the ground zero. I played on day one. I was actually really excited for the game. I played it at Eurogamer Expo like months before it came out. And UB actually tweeted us out on their Twitter at the time because we were one of the best teams at the show floor. So
nice.
That was really fun. Yeah, it was really, really hyped. I was really into it. And then the game came out, and yeah, I really enjoyed my time playing through it. I mean, you could see that there were some issues. Like it was. I wouldn't say it was a flat game, but like it felt a bit like the loot game was sort of not really where it
wasn't
could be.
That,
At launch, it felt very 2D. Like there were a very linear amount of things that you could really do, and it felt like, especially because like the sets were like right at the end game as well, and they were only available from the Dark Zone vendor, which took a long time to get on launch and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So a lot of the like sort of character RPG depth didn't really like hit you like until you got really, really late in the game, and I think that was maybe a failing that I think they've definitely fixed this time around. But anyway, I digress. So yeah, so I played through the campaign. I got to end game. I was playing some Dark Zone. I was ahead of the curve gear wise, sort of. So I wasn't really having too much issues that other people were having, where they were like, "Oh, I just get one shot in the Dark Zone all the time. It's not fun." I wasn't really experiencing that too much.
Right.
But I had what a lot of looter shooters have. A problem with it that a lot of looter shooters have, in that I got to a point where I felt like I'd done everything, right?
Yeah.
I felt like there wasn't any more things I wanted to collect, and I wasn't enjoying the activities anymore, and I just burnt out, basically. Yeah. And that happened, I don't know, I must have played it for about 3-4 weeks at the time, and then I just put it down, and I never came back to it. I even had the season pass, and I never went back and played any of the DLC, like, at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a problem that a lot of the genre have, and it's something we'll discuss a bit more when we get back into Division 2. But I think, in some respects, the Division 1 was a lot like a sort of ahead of its time. Like, you didn't have games like Destiny 2 that had come out and like almost created like a blueprint for the genre, right? You obviously had like Borderlands 1 was out, the original Destiny I think was out at that point.
I think
right?
so, yeah, or the year before, something like that.
Yeah, I think it was the year before. But the whole like creating it as a multiplayer like MMO light style looter shooter, that was still in its infancy, and I think that game really felt that, and I think that's one of the biggest issues with it.
Yeah, I think honestly for me, The Division 1 was one of, if not my favorite like game at the time, because like you, I sort of I played the betas and I was like, this is a pretty cool game. I like the UI. I like the whole sort of concept
for
this
UI,
game. The UI was it was piece de la resistance.
Just to be clear as well, it is in the second game. Like the Division's UI is one of those. A lot of people think it's like Marmite, like you love it or you hate it, but honestly, it's very well
really
designed.
clean. It's like the footage that I'm playing now in the background. I'm playing some beta footage because I haven't actually recorded anything from actual release yet. So this is beta footage. Keep in mind. But like when you go into cover, the UI snaps to the angle of the cover you're in, so it like runs parallel with the sort of like the top rail of the piece of cover or whatever. And it's like the small stuff like that, right? Where you could just have it floating, you could just have the armor counter in the bottom right, like Destiny 2 does, or you could like make it respond to what you're doing. I think that's like one of the big things about the UI. Anyway, so yeah, I picked the game up day one. I played with a couple of guys I met in the Dark Zone in the beta. And I was playing with those guys, leveling up and stuff like that. It was really fun. And yeah, so I mostly did Dark Zone, actually. Did a lot of PvP in Division 1. And one of the things I noticed definitely was there was a tendency to use very meta builds, right? And that is sort of going that way with the Division 2, where things like one-shot sniper builds are a thing. But I think there are definitely things they can do to fix those. We'll talk about those in the next sort of segmenty headery bit. But yeah, so the Division 1 launched, I was having a good time. I had a really stable game, didn't crash, more than half a dozen times, I would imagine. I just got really lucky, I suppose. And yeah, so the missions were good. They felt a little bit sort of wave of enemy after a wave of enemy, which is kind of indicative of a looter shooter genre like game, right? So
it's hard to avoid.
It is hard to avoid, but there aren't really that many things else they can do. But yeah, so it was pretty standard gameplay, but what really got me was, like I said, the Dark Zone. The one thing I didn't like about TD1 was the sort of, they weren't radiant quests, but they were sort of close. They didn't regenerate or anything, but they were, the ones where you had to defend a checkpoint and then you get plus 50 medical wing supplies or something.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, those ones. They were sort of just boring and they didn't feel good, whereas that's what I would call like the intermission missions, where they weren't really side missions, but they were like just things you do when you go from point A to point B, or you need to upgrade something, you just do that. In Division 2, what we have is a really, really good use of those intermission missions. Like we have the control points, the sort of, they're more radiant, but there's more variation in what you're doing, to the point where, and like stuff like projects actually makes you do this stuff and upgrade it, and there are different mechanics behind it, which actually make going through these missions the intermission missions quite pleasurable, actually. And that's what I really like about the Division 2. It's the missions are okay. There isn't much story, but where it shines, like in the sort of early game, is that addition, that extra sort of separating layer between doing nothing and just like sort of going around killing a few enemies and getting gear and actually doing missions. It's like that bit in the middle is what the Division 2 does really, really well, and something they've massively improved over the Division 1. I mean, yeah, I think as for the Dark Zone is the Dark Zone, right? The rogue mechanics that they implemented in 1.7 or 1.8 in Division 1, like the hold down a button to go rogue, that stuff's all here, plus the new grey rogue, the actual rogue mechanics, where like stuff like Thieves' Den, and like you and I said in the beta, that was one of the best things that they've done in this game.
Yeah, I think it like a lot of people criticized it for like like dumbing down the Dark Zone, or like baby moding it and making it easier, but I honestly don't think it does that. What it does is it ends up condensing and sort of refining the experience that you would have normally into more sort of controlled bursts, which actually feels way better.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree with that. I think honestly they've done a lot of really good stuff with Division 2. They've improved on it. It doesn't feel like Division 1.5 because combat is completely different, right? You actually have to physically stop, take a moment out, and like heal and stuff. For example, is what I mean by like stopping it. Like you have to physically get into cover and wait for your heal buff to go, or wait for your drone to activate its heal splooge, or do something like that. So actually, you can't just chicken feet around and just charge at people and kill them with a shotgun in one shot, right? And that's down to the NPCs as well, because in the Division 1, NPCs were just stand there, shoot at them, move on to the next room, right? But then in the Division 2, they've definitely improved on the NPC, like, AI.
Yeah. The AI, I think it's a lot better, but I think it has its issues. I think they've almost like, I don't know if I would say not tested it, but they've not been aware of how the AI's sort of rules that they've implemented to make them smarter, i.e. they'll be more aggressive and they'll try and flank you now and they'll try and do all this stuff.
And stuff like, yeah.
They've sort of, instead of, there's no like rate limit on it. There's no like, no one sort of like an enemy spawns and it won't like think, oh, should I push them now or shall I wait a little bit, shoot a little bit, then try a push, then wait a little bit, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, this is this type of soldier. It does that thing, right? So like you get a soldier guy and he's like, I'm going to push just constantly. Like, I'm just going to run at them and I'm going to keep running at them until they're dead.
Yeah,
and
I think that's...
like, it needs to sort of
not variation,
temper it a bit.
Yeah, definitely. I think stuff like the armored soldiers that go prone and just lie down in the middle of a fucking road or something. It's like it's just like stuff like that, which is sort of, yeah, okay, I see what you're trying to do, but at the same time, no. And so I think the AI is a definite improvement. Speaking of improvements, well, moving on from improvements, I suppose, things they could still improve. I guess we've talked about the AI a little bit already.
Yeah. So yeah, if we're talking about like the state of Division 2 now, I think it's a bit early to say to comment on certain things. So things that I'm going to sort of just roll out that we're not going to like discuss now, because there's no point in saying that, because they've not even had time to sort of react to certain things.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I think commenting on the amount of content, regardless of whether you think there's like too much or too little or they need more or whatever, it's too early, right? We don't know what their content sort of
plan is.
Yeah, like we know that there's the 3 chapters, and we know what the content in the first chapter is,
and the second one as well.
But do we actually? We know.
Yeah, it was in the in-game trailer. Yeah,
but we don't know what it is, right? Like we know the names of it and like where like the story is going or whatever, but we don't know what actually that consists of.
Yeah, it's something to do with the Pentagon, I believe.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. That's all
other
we know.
than that,
we don't know what like gameplay wise if that's going to mean like return of incursions from TD1 or like what, right? But we're pretty consistent. The first update is going to be the tidal basin, world tier 5 stuff, and raiding, presumably.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go into how much their content schedule is like good or bad or needs more or like whatever, but that's a thing, right? So we won't discuss that. But I think the main things to look at the moment that are like core gameplay aspects that might not change in the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
Are the way in which the RBG mechanics, like the stats and the builds and things like that, work.
Yeah.
And also the sort of like the game loop is what I would call it, right? Which is like what you are expected to do in the game over time, right? Not necessarily like what content you've got to do, but like what is it that this game is going to do to keep us like coming back over and over
just
again.
Gameplay loops,
to do that stuff, right? To do the like getting the gear, the things like that. Like how is it they're planning to do that?
Yeah, like you do this to do this to do this, then you get your gear, and then you like go back, you sort your gear out, and then you equip your new gear. You do a bit of recalibration, then you do this,
whatever
this
it is.
Yeah.
So I think first of all, let's talk about game loops then. So currently in the game, obviously there's the campaign, which is in itself it's like a game loop, but like that finishes, and then you've got the end game, right? And that's where the game really like that's where the live service is at. So that's what we'll talk about.
Yeah.
So far you've got the bounty system, which doesn't feel particularly rewarding.
It's a sort of like.
It currently only really rewards specialization points to level up your specialization.
Yeah, like that's the only sort of big reward. But the loot you get, like there are different ways of getting the 450 gear, like gear score loot, right? You can do the bounties, or you can do X, Y, and Z. You know, there are different ways, but once you're there, it doesn't feel as rewarding. It doesn't like sort of
so
give you the next
that's
thing
another
that
thing,
you
isn't
need.
it?
Yeah.
So it's right. So so the activities. We'll go through all the activities, then we'll go through all the rewards. So you got bounties. You've got replaying missions on harder difficulties up to challenge currently, but there will be heroic when the first update comes out. But yeah, so you got missions, you got bounty, the dark zone, and you have like the what do they call it? Oh, living world. That's what it's called.
Right.
Which is where there's like AI going around doing stuff on the map, and there's like activities like control points and things like that to do, and there's like rewards associated with certain things doing that, right? So they're currently the main 3 activities that they want you to sort of like play, and repeat, and they're how you're supposed to sort of stay in the game.
Yeah.
So what rewards do we have to keep us doing those things? We have currently crafting blueprints and materials, like crafting system as a whole. We have straight up RPG equipment, gear, like weapons that what you put on your character to make you more powerful or to change the gameplay up. And you have like progression, like XP style stuff, right? And that's tied to your specializations, and it's tied to the dark zone. So you have a dark zone level that goes all the way up to 50. And you have your specializations, which go up to 160 exactly, and there's 3 of them, right?
Yeah.
So, what issues do I immediately see with this system, right? Well, looking at the rewards, they're very finite. They're very like over and done with very quickly, right? Like what you actually get out of doing these activities either has a finite limit or just isn't like satisfying. So, for example, specializations, right? You can get, I don't know, it's between like 3 and 5 for every bounty.
Yeah, I think 3 and 5, and then like 10 when you complete all of the strongholds.
Yeah. But so you get between 3 and 5 for each bounty you're doing at end game. So I think you get bounties daily and weekly, like so the like more lucrative ones are weekly.
But you can also get you can also get like just like ones,
like random ones as well.
Like just random ones,
Yeah, they're all like you can find a guy in the world and he'll just give you one, or you'll do a fucking what they call projects, which are like sort of like little things you can track. Anyway, so yeah, you get specialization points, but like if you've got a bear in mind there's 3 specs currently, there are going to be more, but if you've got like your progress bar goes up to 160 and you're getting 3 a time, like it's not going to last you that long. Like I don't think it will.
I think it still takes a while. It just like depends how efficient you are with how you do stuff, right? Like I wasn't that efficient.
Sure, but like I haven't beelined it, and I've already completed 1.5 specs, like just by playing activities and stuff randomly, not even trying to efficiently farm it.
Yeah, you just get them. You just accrue them, don't you? And levels and stuff.
Yeah, because I think sometimes you get them from leveling up.
You do
maybe
for getting a clan cache, a personal cache.
Field proficiency. Yeah. Okay, so you get them from leveling up as well. So like, you get them sort of over time from doing a lot of different things, but these don't feel very rewarding because the specs themselves, I think, are fairly weakly designed. They don't have a lot of like impactful things. There's a lot of like put a point in here for 5% extra this, right? Or there's a lot of like stuff that you just do not want. Like one of the ones that the survivalist has is you get a unique magazine that's specific to that spec for the 5.56 assault rifles,
right?
Because assault rifles are one of the weapons that you're supposed to focus on the survivalist. But the magazine you get, it's not a good magazine for an assault rifle. First of all, like the stats it has are just not good for an assault rifle.
Yeah.
And second of all, it's like literally statistically worse than other ones you can get from just walking around the world. So not only do you get these points sort of fairly quickly, and then once you're at 160, you don't need any more anyway.
Yeah.
You also like don't really care when you get them because they don't actually do much for your actual build and like what you're doing.
Right.
So
yeah, I mean stuff like that with like talents and stuff, right? You get talents and you're obviously like, oh yeah, I really want this talent and this talent, and I think like getting this on this will be a god roll stuff, but like there's no real incentive to get a god roll weapon because the talents are like powerful, but they're not that powerful. If that makes sense.
That's talking about gear, not specializations. Though.
Yeah,
so
true. But like,
that's a whole different kettle of fish. So
yeah, true.
Anyway, that's enough said about specializations. We'll move on to gear now. But like, yeah, specializations just I think they need to like just turn up the switch a little bit, and they also need to like
the weapons need
make
to be
it more impact. Oh, well, the actual weapons.
Yeah,
that
I think
you get,
unless if you don't have the
whole, like, across. Gum.
If you don't have the like plus 10%, plus 50%, whatever it is, sort of tree
damage boost.
Yeah, like the damage boost that you get. If you don't have that, then they really don't do all that much damage. It's just not that powerful.
No. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, the specializations, they just need turning up a little bit, like damage on the weapons, like the whole talent trees in general. They just need to feel more impactful, basically.
Yeah.
And you also need to feel like if you've got a tree that has 160 points in it, you need to feel like when you filled out that tree, you've really achieved something, right? And it just doesn't at the moment. You get them so quickly and so sort of like for like not anything in particular, like it just doesn't feel good anytime.
I don't think we're not saying that they need to be like sporadic to come across, but because there are 3 trees and you can always go between them, so there is 160 times 3 points, right? Which is what, like, quick maths, 480 something. I don't know.
Something like that. I don't know. But
yeah, I think you're right. I think they do just need a little bit of a touch up. But yeah, I think that's
so anyway,
that pretty much covers that.
Yeah, that's specialization. So we'll move on to the next part of like rewards, right? Which is loot. Yeah. So the actual loot and gear that you get. Now, obviously, this has to be the most important part of it. This has to be the most sort of impactful part, because not only does it affect how you interact with the game world through the weapons, because it's a shooter, but it also provides the way in which you make your character feel unique. Like all the stats, the talents, everything that you, all the like brand sets, everything you sort of knit together at this point makes your character do what you want your character to do. It creates the depth of game for you to like invest in trying to like put all the jigsaw pieces together, right?
Yeah, like you have to like find the perfect rolls and stuff like that, and get high.
So like shit. Exactly this, like random rolls. Many games have tried to do random rolls, and almost always they seem to fail.
Yeah.
In my opinion, the random rolls in Destiny 2 are just absolutely horrible.
Yeah, I didn't really play much of them.
Counterintuitive to what they actually are trying to do.
Yeah, they
I think they were added just because the community asked for them. No, like they were almost as an afterthought, and I just don't think they achieve anything good in that game.
Yeah.
I also think games like Borderlands and Borderlands 2 have the issue where their stats are so erratic and so like just all over the place. There's so many different stats. They're so like variant in how well they roll and stuff like that. It ends up being this, and like you can't change anything, so they're always locked in at whatever you like drop them at. You end up with such a vast pool of stuff that you have to grind. Like the realistic time it takes to get any specific item at a decent power level that you want is just it just becomes ridiculous, right?
Yeah, it's always like a sort of ratio between how much gear can be dropped and how many talents there are as to
it's
how
almost
lucky
like
you have to
like
be
a
to
weighing
get the
scale,
item.
isn't it? Like the more that a randomness a piece of gear has, the more gear you have to drop so that you can find the correct one, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's fine, but the Division 2 does I think it does one of the better implementations of this, right?
Definitely.
And this is why I think that. I think it does it because not only does it give you enough stats to look at and to diversify that it makes, specific builds and like what you want to do like a valid choice, but it also doesn't overload you with stats. It doesn't have like a bajillion stats, I wouldn't have said.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't overwhelm you. You can learn most of the stats pretty quickly if you just sort of like look it up. And for that I quite appreciate it. However, and this is a pretty big caveat, right? It does a poor job of maintaining rarity and maintaining
I know what you mean.
I don't know what the word is, like value in an item, right? When something drops at top level, it is either a purple or a yellow item or
Yeah.
orange item or whatever you want to call it, right? And if it's a purple, you look at it to see if there's anything salvageable to like weld it onto another
Yeah.
piece of gear,
You
which
look at
is
it
one
as
of
if
the
it's
systems
like
in the game.
just scrap, basically, most of the
Yeah,
time.
it's like scrap, but does it have something good on it that I want to move
you
over?
get 1/4 portion for it, and that's it.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So you look at that, and so a purple is never interesting, basically, right?
No.
And then you also get into the situation where, because yellows are dropping very, very regularly and very, very often, you look at it and you're like, when a purple drops, you don't know, that could be like a god rolled 450 item, which is currently the level cap, right?
Yeah.
It could be exactly the item, like the things you need. It could be like have the perfect rolls at a really high level. It could be great, but you don't know that seeing the fucking beam of light going into the air, and you don't really expect anything to drop well, because you're like, oh, it's another gold to add to the 150 like stuff in my stash that I'll have to sieve through later. Yeah. And you're getting these at a very, very fast rate, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, you get like,
so you are seeing a lot
3
of them.
or 4 per like mission, you know, plus.
And like that scale we were talking about, that sort of like weighs it out as to it's not too hard to get the god rolls because you're getting a lot of stuff. But then by weighing that out in that way, what they've done is they've created this bombardment of yellow items that are just constantly hitting you at end game.
Yeah.
And you're just sifting through like crap after crap after crap. And it just doesn't feel good. Like when you're playing the game, you literally will get to a point where you'll fill your inventory up with 100 items you just haven't looked at because you're trying to play the game. And you'll have to go and sit in the White House for like 20 minutes, sift through everything to see if there's like something you need to salvage, a good roll on an item that you want to move over, like an actually decently rolled item that you want to move something onto, and you just have to go through and do all of this. And not only do you have to do this just like thinking of like what do you want to equip currently, but also if you want to have like other builds like with different sort of set bonuses and stuff, you're trying to think about different ones. It just gets to the point where like it's not, the stats aren't overwhelming, it's just you're being bombarded with them constantly.
Yeah.
And there's no way to just quickly and easily say, I don't want any of these are bad.
Yeah.
Like
I think
the game needs to do a thing where it just automatically knows like if the rolls on an item are all below 70% of their maximum, and it doesn't have like you can like, I don't know, mark in your inventory what talents you want to find on items.
Yeah.
Like it just automatically is like, this is a garbage item for you. You don't want it, right? There needs to be ways of like saying, just automatically filtering stuff so you don't have to one by one manually go through your whole inventory every time. Like,
but I think that ruins the surprise, though, is the thing, right? I mean, another surprise that I think that is sort of partially non-existent. I mean, there are like things that they do to subvert it, but the exotics in the game, right? Like the really rare, really powerful weapons. And don't get me wrong, they are powerful weapons. The chat box that we got is actually very good. I'm having a lot of fun using it. And you know, so it's stuff like that where there is a very big delta between the sort of top exotics, right? The top tier of rarity in items, and the next tier, the high-end items, the yellows. There is a very big delta between, you know, the frequency of those dropping and stuff. And I mean, if you take, for example, Destiny 2, comparing it to, you know, the probably next most successful recent looter shooter, right? In Destiny 2, you get an exotic item, you get like a really good yellow item, you're like, oh shit, this is amazing, I gotta use this, I gotta at least, like, you know, try it out, see if it's good. And obviously there is a meta, right? But when you get that item with a very unique roll on it, and you're like, oh, this is actually really cool, and I can use this. That exotics are the same in this game, but the frequency at which exotics in Destiny 2 drop is actually like fairly high. And there are a lot of them, but it's like still fairly high, while it still maintains that sort of meta of there are a few really good ones that people want to go for.
Yeah, so when you see an exotic in Destiny 2, you look at that, like, you know, drop on the floor, and you're like, not only could this be a good exotic that's like a really good item, but even if it's not, like these are rare items to just even see, right? So you look at it and you're like, damn, this, like, I got a good drop. Regardless, even if it's a garbage item, like, you're still like, damn, I've got it ticked off. Like, that was a really rare drop to get.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, when I sort of, every single time that I got an exotic from the end of a Nightfall, or, you know, the end of a strike or something, I was like, oh shit, I got an exotic, nice, let's go have a look at it. In The Division 2, it's not that I don't say that, because when you get an exotic, obviously the sort of surprise and the excitement is tenfold because they're all good, they're all rare, and you get really fucking excited for it. But like, you don't say that enough in this game because you don't
just don't
automatically
see them.
know if like that item is good. Like, you can always go and say, "Oh shit, I got a really good rolled high end. This is great. I got an amazing, model 700 like
I
used for
see what you
PvP or
mean.
something." But like, there's no sort of excitement factor. You don't get that. Oh shit, I got a really good, like, right off the bat. You don't get that, and there is like you say, the sort of value of the rarities drops quite a lot in Division 2 as you get like towards the end game, because obviously everyone's still
Yeah.
trying to go for exotics, and when you do get exotic, like I said, it's amazing. But if you're in the
I
low game
feel
and you go from getting
I
greens to getting blues or purples, like a lot of people do, you're like, oh shit, awesome! I just literally jumped 2 rarity tiers, but there's
yeah.
not really a thing at the end game.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I don't know if I agree with the exotics. I think the biggest issue is the one exotic that we've got so far, or well, I've had another one. I've actually had
Yeah, you've had the one that you
3
gave to
now.
Omnus, yeah.
Yeah, I gave one to a friend of ours. I got the pistol and I've got the submachine gun. But I feel like I do agree with you with the quest exotics, right? And I had the exact same issue with Destiny 2. I think putting exotic weapons at the end of a quest where you're guaranteed to get them takes away the pizzazz of being like, holy shit, this just happened to me. Like,
Yeah.
I've got this really like exciting thing that has just happened, right? That
Yeah.
high you just don't get because not only has everyone done the same quest and got the exact same item, but also you've had to do this like medial task to get to the point where you get something that isn't exciting because everyone else already has it. It's kind of like a chore you just have to do.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I know
and
what you mean.
that is just I just do not think that is a good way to do like big dick item drops in games. I just like it's just not a very good way to do it. I don't think.
Yeah.
And also it's always going to be finite content, isn't it? Like once you've done that quest, you've got that item done, right? It's you're never gonna. It's not something you need to ever replay, and that in itself is like it just like you could have put that effort into something that you could replay, for example, like an activity that could have dropped the item, right? I just think that's a better use of development time, and I think it's a better way of engaging with players, like giving them more things to do with rewards tied to those things, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think
But I
that
will
is just
say
something you
that
need to look at.
the drop that I got, the exotic drop that I got, did feel fucking awesome. Like when
Yeah.
that dropped and I saw the exotic beam at the end of the mission we did, I was like, fuck yeah.
I do like the beams. I do like how you physically, that it does have that in Destiny 2 a little bit, but like when you see the beam shoot up in the air after you kill an enemy, you're like, oh fuck, we have to finish this now because I cannot wait to get out there and claim that item. It doesn't just you kill the boss,
but you only feel
get an
that
item.
you only feel that for exotics, don't you? Like that's the only time that you get that,
Yeah.
and you should be getting that for anything that you're equiping, and that I think is
I think
is the
mid-game,
issue with high ends.
I think mid-game you do get that sense, right? You do get like, oh shit, I've just gone from I've got my first couple
When you're doing
of
the
high
story,
ends and stuff, yeah, and you're like, oh nice,
Yeah.
cool, I got that, but like, obviously there will be a point where you get towards the end of the game, you're getting the sort of highest band of loot, and that's great, but there's no way of, like I say, like specifically saying, oh shit, I got this cool item. Anyway, I think that's pretty much our gear, right? That's like
Yeah.
what we think about gear, to be honest. We're going to move on a little bit. We're going to talk about... You go.
I was going to say, so that's the rewards done, basically.
Yeah.
The one thing I will talk about just before we go on to anything else is the actual activities. We discussed that there's the 3, right? Do you think that those 3 activities are enough to keep you occupied for the time in which it takes to get to the next expansion pack?
I think...
Or expansion DLC?
I think it is, kind of, because there are still things that I haven't unlocked, and I know that I haven't unlocked, and I need to go and unlock them, like all the blueprints and stuff, from doing the level 3 checkpoints, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And they are also associated with all the little things, like the propaganda broadcast and stuff like that, and the public executions, all those sorts of things. So I'm sort of pushed to doing these things to get these rewards that I should probably get. If I'm going to do them or not is another question. I think stuff like crafting blueprints, right? I have what I need, and I don't do a lot of crafting, at least now, because I know there's going to be more stuff. So wasting my resources on, a next thing. And I mean, there is the argument, like you might as well spend them. They're there, you get them easy.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like still the thing where I don't really want to craft anything because I'm just happy with getting drops and using drops that I get. And I have like good weapons, I have good armor now, so there's not really much point past that. So I think the activities that we have are really good, much better than the Division 1. The rewards behind them are fairly decent. You know, getting crafting blueprints is something that everybody wants to do, and the mods, for example, are a big thing. But if you have already got what you want and what you need to like be successful in the game, there is no point in doing them. I think that's just indicative of everything.
Well, so that's comparing them to the rewards that you get from them, right? The actual activities, how long do you think like they'll keep you entertained? So, for example, for me, I think the Dark Zone is something that's very entertaining, but the sort of tenseness and the excitement comes from the risk versus reward in PvP scenarios, right?
Yeah.
But you don't get that risk reward if what you're carrying and what you're trying to extract, like if the loot on like that is the risk, if it's not interesting and it's not something you're tied to, then it just loses all of that sort of impact. You know what I mean? Like you don't feel tense because you're like, fuck it, if I die, I've lost my
that's what I like.
Shit I don't care
it's
about.
Because all through that, you're still thinking that could be a good item because you don't know the rolls on it. Like it could be the most god-rolled, amazing thing you've ever seen in your entire life, but you don't know that until you get out.
Wouldn't you feel like the Dark Zone was more tense if you did know that roll and you did know that was a good item? Or at least not necessarily if you knew exactly what the item was, but if you at least knew it was going to be a good item. Like for example, right? If you were to get an exotic in the Dark Zone, right?
Yeah.
Regardless of its role, regardless of whatever, you would know it's an exotic, and you'd be like, "Shit, this is important. I need to get this out." Right? Obviously, I'm not saying necessarily that they might have exotics in the Dark Zone later, but I'm not saying like, put exotics in the Dark Zone, that'll fix it, right? What I'm saying is, again, it comes back to the gear stuff. Like, if you don't know that gear is important or that it's good, you don't have the incentive to you don't covet it the same way as you would that you know something is a better rarity or you know something that is a higher power level. Or do you know what I mean? Like you just don't covet it as much, and I think that is an issue they're going to need to fix.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that pretty much sums it up. I think that they do need to just sort of touch it up a little bit, but yeah, we're gonna move on from gear. We've been talking about it for a while. We're gonna talk about the physical editions really quickly. So by no means am I suggesting, obviously this game's released, but pre-orders are amazing, right? Because pre-orders are. It really depends on the type of person you are and if you've played them. And I always say play the game before you buy anything. So if you play betas and stuff like that, then you can maybe make up a decision about if this is the game for you. Anyway, that's sort of my stance on pre-order. So me and you both got the same edition. We got the Dark Zone edition, which was something like £100, but it was £80 because of the 20% off, which is something that Ubisoft does really well. Is that 20%? It's really good. You play the games, you get the points, then you can buy more stuff for the games at a reduced price.
It's a very interesting thing to do, like to give you value back for playing their games. Like I think it's great. It's no one else has even done that, like or tried to do that really. Yeah. I guess you could argue Steam's marketplace, like with the selling off in-game items and stuff. But,
I think Steam also does it through coupons. You get coupons from certain events and stuff. But that's for specific games, not for coins you can spend on anything. Anyway, so we got the physical edition, and I have to say, my physical edition, I'm assuming yours is the same, is really, really good quality.
Yes.
I think that, they had the Division 1, which was the watch, right? But you got, a really cool watch, and it's a token, a thing that you could use. It was an actual usable thing. And days have gone now where usable things are few and far between, which is why I think the Fallout 76 pre-order was... what was it? The Power Armor edition, right? Was really popular because it was a wearable thing. It was a physical thing you could use in a prop or something and actually, make that purchase actually last, right? You get a statue with a Dark Zone. It's somebody firing a flare. They've got the demolitionist grenade launcher in their hands. And it's it's a good weight, it's a good feel, it's a good texture. The sort of craftsmanship is quite well done actually, and
it looks and feels really nice.
Yeah, it's not like a thing you really can use or notice. I would have worn that watch if I had it all the fucking time. I don't wear watches, but I would fucking wear the shit out of that. And the statue is cool because I can look at it and I can say, cool. I said to you when I was buying it, I really need some desk flare because my desk is
Mhm.
like a glass of water and a packet of tissues. That's pretty much what's on it, and like my homework. But like, yeah, having that thing or a presence from like probably my favorite game, at least of the last 10 years, I would say. Other than Half-Life 2, obviously. But, like, having a physical memento that's actually a good quality and hasn't been fucking scammed, you haven't, like, been scammed out of, like, the bag,
Yeah.
which you fell for, actually.
Yeah.
Did you even get your bag back yet? Your
I
good
don't
one?
think they've even sent them yet. Like, I don't even know what's going on
Pretty
with
sure
that,
they
to
were
be honest.
supposed to send them, but, anyway.
Yeah, but
So, yeah,
shrug.
that's the physical editions. Okay, that's basically all of the stuff we wanted to talk about for Division 2, I think. I'm
Mhm.
going to take a quick 2-minute break. I just need to grab some water. So we'll put you on hiatus, think about what we said, and we'll be back shortly.
Yep, see you in a bit.
I said 2 minutes. I lied. We're back now. Welcome back. Yeah, I literally, my bathroom is right next. I don't know why I said 2 minutes. 2 seconds I think is more accurate. Anyway, right, news time, I guess. Or do we want to talk about other games?
Um, we can talk about some other releases quickly.
Sure.
We'll just sort of run through them if you want.
Yeah, go for it.
So, this week's been pretty big for games, actually, or I should say the past few weeks have been pretty big for games. We've had the Division 2, which we've talked about in depth. I think yesterday was Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. Yeah,
yesterday, the day before,
yeah.
I think. Yeah.
I have that, but I haven't played it yet.
Right.
I have it on Steam. And also, I think it was 2 days after the release of the Division 2, I think. Satisfactory came into early access, which is another game I've been playing quite a bit of. It's good fun. So, yeah, we'll talk about a little bit about Satisfactory real quick.
Sure.
So, I don't know if you've, I think you've probably played a bit of Minecraft in your time, and maybe you've heard of this game called Factorio.
Yeah, I played about let's see, about 4 years of Minecraft.
Nice, that's quite a bit.
Yeah, it's a little bit.
But yeah,
and Factorio I played a little bit of, yeah.
Yeah, so these sort of games that like simulate like just the satisfaction you get when you make something like do it itself, right? The satisfaction of and then just pressing a button and being like, oh my god, it's doing it, right?
Yeah.
that
it
sort
works.
of I don't know what it is, but it just exactly. Your brain there's something in your brain that goes off when you fix or like when you build something like that. And I think this is another one of those games, right? It's Satisfactory. Not only is it stunning because it's built in UE4, but it's also just like it does the whole like 3D version of this very well. Like in Minecraft, obviously the that side of things is all mods and stuff, right? So you encounter quite a few issues, like different mods don't work with each other sometimes, and all of this. And like, not to say it isn't a good experience. Like modded Minecraft is hilarious and awesome, right? But this just takes that and puts it into like just a really refined filter. Like I would almost say it's on like Blizzard sheen that you get in like Blizzard games. They always look like perfect, right? It's like almost on that level. Like just the way in which the structures are designed, all of the like things like
all the design is
nicely. It's just really well done. Really
reminds me of it. Almost reminds me of sort of the rework of Space Engineers, the modeling of Space Engineers they did, where it's the models, you don't really look at them because there's so many of them going to be lined up, multiple different fucking refineries and factories and blah blah blah. But like the individual models, if you look at them, they do look like really well refined, and that game does look pretty beautiful, and the gameplay does look really good as well.
Yeah, and obviously it does the whole factory thing perfectly in Satisfactory. Like the way the conveyor belts sort of like snap together like Lego, the way that all of your sort of factories and stuff sort of snap to each other, and like you end up with these big sort of like Lego style like factories that are all clicking together and everything's doing stuff, and you sort of sit back on a walkway watching it, and it's just incredible.
Shit just
the lighting and
out.
everything just bouncing off of it. Just
what's
it is very satisfactory. Let's just say that.
Nice. So what's the sort of like goal like in that game? Have they said much about it? Because I know in Factorio there's the whole sort of like you have to launch a rocket and some other shit.
Yeah, so a lot of the way these games sort of work is they'll have like a progression system in them, in that you do like, you know, some sort of like tier 1 like element of doing stuff, be it like, you know, gather iron and refine that, or whatever it is. You do a thing, and then that like goes into like some sort of like either research or like some sort of progression mechanic that then unlocks more stuff, and then you sort of rinse repeat until you get to the like last sort of tier where you'll do some sort of event that like ends the game. That's how like Factorio works. That's how a lot of Minecraft mods work.
Yeah.
And that's like a fairly like solid way of doing these style games. And to an extent, Satisfactory is pretty much the same sort of style. You have like tiers of technology which each have their own like research thing. And you go about. So hold on, I have it open in another window. I'll go and check the actual the actual hub, and I'll actually tell you some examples. So yeah, like you have tier 0 is like a tutorial. You go through a series of like doing things that the game tells you to do to like teach you how to like do the basics, like, you know, connect up some stuff and put a mine down, and, you know, like basic stuff like that.
Yeah, like all the sort of tutorial.
Yeah,
island.
and then pretty much. And then at tier 1, you start to get more complicated things. Like you'll get like the walls to build actual inside factories, and you get walls with like conveyor belt holes in them and stuff like that. So you can start making more intricate things. You get the ability to like split and merge conveyor belts. You get like more complicated machines that will take like 3 inputs to make one thing and stuff like that. And as you get like more complicated, you get access to like more complicated like stuff you can make. So you start out being able to make bars, which you can turn into plates, right? And then eventually you can then find copper, and then you get copper that you can turn into wire, and then you've got wire, and you've got iron plates, and then you can make screws, and then you can make plates and screws into reinforced plates, and then you can make reinforced plates into frames, and then you can make frames into you get it, right?
The idea.
yeah, exactly, right? So, and as you're doing this, the game has this like hub mechanic where you do all this research that asks you for more of these, all right? It will say like, go and get 100 plates, then go and get, you know, 100 reinforced plates, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Until it gets to a point where you get like a separate building that becomes your research thing, so that you can like automate your research and stuff like that. But it's very similar in that sense to sort of Factorio. And I think the idea of a lot of these games is, although you get to a point where you've sort of done the tech tree, it becomes more like, how efficient can you make like these giant sort of structures, and it becomes more like you have to make your own sort of fun out of it, similar to Minecraft, right?
Yeah, it's like just the efficiency and the sort of perfection of what you've already made. Like, you've got a thing which is a little bit wasteful, you know, it produces 200 iron, and you've got a thing which smelts 190 iron. You've got that 10 little deficit there. So it's sort of like working out ways to I can appreciate that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so there's quite a lot of game just to get to that final point anyway, but then obviously there's as much fun as you want to have after that, trying to make ridiculous factories and stuff.
Yeah.
And the world, oh my god! One thing I want to just really quickly touch on before we move on from Satisfactory. So they've unlike a lot of other games, they've opted for a static world, right? And this has been a really controversial thing about Satisfactory, because a lot of people said, well, if there's a static world and there's only one map, like, how are we gonna replay the game, right? Like, it's not going to be fun to replay the game if I've already seen the map once. Like, there's no reason for me to play it multiple times.
Right.
And I also thought this. I was a bit worried. I was like, if they've only made one map, there's really going to be no reason to like play it again, because like in Factorio, for example, you can play it again, but the map will be completely different, which will change the way you build your factory.
Yeah.
And so the thing that I've very quickly realized is the map is fucking enormous. And I don't say that lightly. It is massive, right?
Yeah, I'm just playing the trailer in the background. They've gone through like 12 different biomes.
Yeah. So like in the beta weekend that I played, you can only start in grasslands, and in
Right.
the actual game there are 3 starting zones. And I was like, I explored quite a bit in the beta until my Jeep fell through the floor, and then I
Right.
quit.
I love how that is the limiting factor there.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I found like most of the stuff. Like there was a few areas where there was like they've done you know, in like Legend of Zelda where you have like a rock with a crack on it, and you're like, well, I need a bomb for the rock with the crack on it. Obviously, there's some bits like that where you're like, oh, I need a drill for this, clearly, because it's got a big crack in it or whatever, right?
Right.
And I thought, oh, I've explored pretty much everywhere around here, apart from a few sort of like cavey looking areas. There can't be much behind those. How wrong I was, because when I spawned in on a completely different zone this time, I was somewhere completely different that I had never seen. Like, and it was completely
sorry, stop.
different biome.
There's trains.
Yeah, there's trains.
Can I buy this game now?
You can buy this game.
I'm buying this game. I'm actually buying this game after this fucking podcast.
It's so good.
There's trains, dude. There's fucking
trains.
monorails.
What's even better is there's loads of different types of cars and stuff, and you can automate them. Self-driving cars. Elon Musk would be proud.
Oh my god, this game actually looks hella fucking good.
Yeah, it's fucking tight.
Really,
anyway,
like, I was just thinking, oh shit, it's another like, you know, factory thing, but like, wow.
Yeah, it's really cool. The map blew me away. The fact that I was somewhere completely different with an entirely different biome with thousands of acres to explore
and the
again,
option to get back to the place that you already explored as well. I'm assuming.
Yeah, if I eventually go that far out, but like this map is like so big. Like, oh man, to find back to where I was before, I wouldn't even know where to start. It's that massive.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I feel that. I feel that.
Big thumbs up. It's going nice places. It's a bit buggy. It's early access, but yeah, it's one to look for if you're into that sort of game for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. So what else came out? Oh, Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. Okay, so I can't give you the verdicts on this. We'll probably go into it in another podcast, like later down the line. But I've looked up a lot of gameplay, and the verdict that I've heard from other people and seems to be the consensus is if you liked Dark Souls and you've played an Assassin's Creed game at some point, then you'll probably like this.
Nice.
That's pretty much where it's at.
It's sort of like Weeb Souls, right? It's a bit sort of that genre, but I haven't actually played Dark Souls before. I always wanted to, and I sort of was almost about to buy it, and then I was like, I'm probably going to be really shit at this game. I mean, everybody's shit, but I will probably be extremely shit at this game.
Yeah. Well, do you know what? Honestly, Dark Souls is one of these weird phenomenons, right? Where it's basically a single-player game. You shouldn't play it multiplayer. It ruins it, right?
Yeah.
It's basically a single-player game. But you should play it around other people, which sounds ridiculous.
Yeah,
right?
I get
it's
that.
It's a completely single-player game, but you should be on a couch with 3 other people when you play it. It just, I don't know what it is, but it's like this community sort of feeling that you get when you're around other people that know what's going on, where it's I don't know, it just makes the game way
I know
better.
what you mean. It's like sort of like you're fighting a boss, you die, and you're like, oh fuck, and then the people around you proceed to like just take the fucking mick out of you for about an hour, and then you're like, yeah guys, I know I can barrel roll, just stop complaining at me. I know I gotta spam double space.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's that, but like also it's great if you're playing it around people who are playing at the same time as you. Like I remember when I got Dark Souls 2 at uni.
Thanks, Coop.
There was like 4 or 5 of us in our living room because we had a big house because we had like 6 people living in our house at uni. So yeah, there was a ton of us in the living room, and we all set up with our own PS4s, with our own TVs in different fucking areas of the room, and we all played Dark Souls 2 at the same time. So it was like we were learning the bosses like alongside each other. Like one person would go one way, and one person would go a completely different way, and we'd end up in different areas. And be like, oh shit, how did you get there? And oh, what item is that? Where do we find that item and stuff like that? And that sort of like community of like
it's trying like to old style. It's like old style community of games.
Yeah. And Dark Souls just I don't know why really lends itself to that style of like play.
Yeah, I can see that. It's because it's big. It's expansive world. It's a bit like Fallout 4, but I think you could kind of do that in Fallout 4, but there's still a linear. There's still like quite a sort of direct linearness to Fallout 4, even though it is, open world and stuff, which you don't really see in Dark Souls, and that's why you can sort of do that, is you have so much
Yeah,
content to explore that is you can actually explore and is worthwhile to explore.
yeah.
So
Yeah, it doesn't hold your hand and force you to do everything like
yeah,
like Fallout 4, for example.
definitely.
Like if you miss something, you miss something. That item, you're just not getting it that playthrough unless someone
Yeah.
tells you. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, other games. So this is the last game I think we're going to talk about, but I just wanted to touch on it briefly. Space Engineers. So
okay,
it's in line with Satisfactory, but it actually came out of early access, I think, 2 weeks ago. So this is a little bit old, but 2 weeks ago. Um, I really liked that game. I don't play it now because I sort of like didn't not I haven't grown out of it, but at the same time I've got Division 2 to play, so it's sort of like I could play it if I
it took a
wanted to, and
backbone.
I could do stuff because like it's all about like building that shit. And I had some really cool builds and some ideas that I wanted to try and stuff like that, but I sort of never really got around to it, right? But that game has been in I think it's I think it was actually one of the longest, if not the longest, early access Steam title that's like actually released. So
To actually come out
Daisy,
as a
yeah,
game, yeah.
Daisy is still in fucking like perpetual development hell.
Early access, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Space Engine is actually so it's come out. It's cool. They've added some new stuff. They've redone the survival. I played a bit of it. It's pretty good. It's a lot of fun. I think the one thing Space Engineers needs to be aware of really is just how like how the progression works and stuff, because there is a progression system now. There's a tree where you have to build and break down certain blocks to unlock the next blocks. So it's not like there's a workbench where you can decide what you get to get next, which would be a good sort of progression step. But it's sort of like place this and break it down and you get the next stuff, which is
Yes.
it's sort of like okay, it's easy. It's easy to learn. It's like oh shit, I
I
just
think
gotta
it's
do
supposed
this.
to be like a tutorial mechanic, right, as well, because eventually it
Yeah,
stops
true.
doing that. It lets you just sort of go wild, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
but like, and the other thing is with stuff like Factorio, like I mentioned, in Minecraft, there is a non-story story. There is a thing you could do at the end when you're prepared enough. You could do it
Yeah.
right at the beginning. You could just like, shit, right, okay, I'm gonna build like
Dark Souls, that
just
shit.
go and build everything and bam, problem solved. Or you do, work towards this, but also, you know, spiral off down a different fucking tree. It's like a fucking a decision tree, right? Like from to sort of be a little bit weird. It's like
Yeah.
decision trees, right? Where you've got to go like to get to this place, I need to do this other thing and this other thing and this other thing, and that's what branches out the sort of gameplay. You've got one single like target to do, but that target requires an enormous amount of other targets to be reached, so you have the infrastructure to be able to do the thing. That's something that
Yes.
Space Engineers doesn't have, and I think it would benefit from stuff like a Factorio style. You're on a planet,
Research
you
tree.
build this
Yeah.
shit. It works like a combination of sort of not quite medieval engineers, but sort of medieval engineers, which is the sort of sister game to it, which is all
Yeah.
about building catapults and shit, basically. And like a combination of that and Space Engineers, where there's a you do this thing and this thing and this thing, and then you get to the point where you can go to space. You have the like hydrogen thrusters to escape orbit. Then the game begins anew, and you get this. You get to discover new space technologies and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
I think that would be really cool. Like you could physically have to go from hydrogen to ion thrusters. You have to make that conscious upgrade, and you have to like produce a system that is capable of churning out, because there is a sort of production system in Space Engineers. It's not quite like Satisfactory or Factorio where there's a single item that sort of churns out along a conveyor belt. It's just like there is an inventory, and as long as one thing is connected to the next, it just insta pulls from it, which is fine. And
Right.
like there should be a thing where you sort of have to craft, like in Factorio, you have to craft like science packs, right, to be able to unlock stuff. So I think that'd be
Yes.
kind of cool, like something similar to that. Like you have to do insightful research, and that would help with exploration as well. Because one thing you can, but not many people do in Space Engineers, is exploration. So you
I
can,
see.
once you've found a place to set up your base, which is basically next to a lake somewhere with some resources nearby, you found that place, you build your base. There's no real need to go anywhere else because ore is quite abundant, and so there's
Yeah.
no real need to, set up a mining. You could, but there's no real need to like set up a mining station a kilometer away that mines iron and another one that mines X and Y and Z, because you get like enough really to sort of get to space. Then once you're in space, asteroids, and it just becomes pretty easy. So
Gotcha.
without multiplayer, I think Space Engineers doesn't lend itself to players very well. But yeah, I think that it could definitely benefit from some decent progression and actually help the game sort of point the player in a direction without holding their hand too much, like the tutorial style progression that we have right now.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good sort of breakdown of where they're at. But yeah, it's good to see that they did come out of early access, though.
It's good.
I'm glad that they made it.
they made it. They're one of like 4 games out of the 6 million on Steam that are actually going to release out of early access.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I had a good time when I played Space Engineers. I haven't played nearly as much as you have.
No, I
played it way back when it first came out in early access, and the guy I played with at the time, we made a spaceship. We sort of went around, flew around, blew up some stuff, and then we were sort of like done with it. But good fun while we did that.
Early game, that was basically all it was about. But there is like, once you have a multiplayer team, it becomes really fun, and you can set people doing different things. It's a bit like making a factory, except that the people of the factories and they just go and like make shit. Like you're building a big moon base, and you need some more uranium for your things. You go and send somebody off to get some uranium and bring it back. Meanwhile, the other guy is getting ore to build the solar panels to power the place, and you get just when you get people doing things, contributing to a big thing, is when it really becomes a really fun game.
Yeah.
And that is Space Engineers in a nutshell, pretty much. Okay, so we're going to move on, talk a little bit about the news. And it's good news because the Dacia Sandero is finally hitting the street. Sorry, that's a Top Gear reference. That was really bad. Okay, so it's good news because NVIDIA's Landscaping I/O. We'll start with that one because that's a pretty fun little thing we can talk about. Have you seen much about that?
So I had a look into it after you told me about it, and it looks interesting, I suppose. It does make you think a bit about what Nvidia are really doing with the piles and piles of money they have.
They're just saying on like fucking like DuckTales sort of mountain of fucking cash. And they're just like, let's make an AI.
Yeah, they're like, we have graphics cards. Nobody cares about
people buy our shit. The competitors are like pretty mediocre. Let's just sit here, doodle our thumbs, and occasionally make a little
points off into the distance. Make me a paint tool that will make sculpture paintings.
Yes, Your Highness.
All right, I guess we can do that.
Yeah, it's like they're sort of filling their time in between graphics card releases, and nobody else is doing anything to compete with them. So they're just like, fuck it.
Yeah, but apart from making you think that, and also thinking about like how far interpretive tools have come to the point where you can do a little like paint.net doodle and it will make you like a photorealistic
just draw a smiley face and it's like, bam, you've got the Mona Lisa, congratulations.
Yeah, like legitimately. Like that's where we're getting to. Like that's an interesting thought, because like at what point does art become a skill? Do you know what I mean? Like when do we get to the point where you don't, not necessarily just like traditional art, but like all sort of artistic like outlets. Like at what point do you just go into a room with a big red button and you just press it and it's like, there you go, there is your generic art, whatever you want it. Like press button, make video game, press button, make TV show.
Yeah, it's all about creative license though, right? And I mean, like,
I suppose
it's like you can just fucking draw a smiley face and make the Mona Lisa, but that's not like artistic. That's just sort of dumb. Like you made the Mona Lisa.
But how far until we get to the point where a computer can just create that artistic sort of?
Are the robots taking over? Hello and welcome to the Ascension podcast. Today is the philosophy of jobs being lost by robots.
Oh man,
yeah.
Let's not
burrow too deep down that shit. I had like 2 years of GCSE philosophy. I don't want to deal with that fucking shit again.
Yeah. So Nvidia is pissing money away on random tools that nobody needs.
Just to fill people in on that, if you don't know what we're talking about, there's Nvidia have made a thing where you can basically draw like a circle and then a line and some other stuff, and like you can fill it with certain textures. And if you were to do like rocks in water, for example, like which was the example that they showed, you basically like draw a line and then it sort of sets it to water, and then when you draw a rock, it automatically has like the shadow and the reflections and stuff. And there are certain things you can change with it. It's a pretty cool thing. I think it's like, it's sort of flair, really. It doesn't really do anything. Nobody's gonna fucking use it, but it's like,
it's
whatever.
not something that's going to revolutionize the world, and it doesn't have any particularly astounding real world applications at the moment. But
yeah, right. The next thing
is what it is.
We're gonna talk about is Epic Games.
Epic Games
Man,
Store. Yeah,
Epic
yeah.
Games Store. I
So I
realized,
think I wanna just put my breakdown out there, right?
yeah,
Because my actual like top level opinion of this whole situation, I think is fairly level, right?
yeah,
And that is that like a lot of people have genuine red line grievances with the Epic Games Store, and to those genuinely like articulated arguments where they prove an actual thing and say this is why, right? That's
yeah,
fine. You don't use it. You go your own way. That's fine.
mm,
But to all of the people who have seen these people with general grievances that like are actually upset and have just jumped on a bandwagon and been like, "Oh, this is the next thing that PC gamers need to hate," and just hate
yeah,
it with an
yeah,
absolute passion without actually doing a lot of research into it. Not saying it is good under the
mm,
skin or anything like that, or like that there is a genuine reason why you should be using it or whatever. I'm just saying like some people are a lot more angry than they actually are warranted to be,
yeah.
and I don't think that's constructive in
But
a discussion where we actually need to kind of
mm,
voice opinions
I
about
think
things like this.
I think it stems from the fact that like PC, like there are a lot of people on the PC, and it's
There are.
quite accessible, and it's not like you know. I think PC people are sort of, they have a reason to have a voice because they're like, they have the tools right in front of them to both play games and talk about the games that they're playing, right? Whereas somebody on Xbox has to physically go to their computer, type out a fucking like rant, and
Um,
then
I think you're
go
right, but
from there.
I think it comes
I think
down
it's
to
just
more than
easy.
that. I think people who play consoles are generally people who aren't as invested in the actual gaming
Yeah, they
industry
just
and the
want to
gaming
play the
sphere.
games and not like what happens to their
They
games.
literally just have a box under their TV that is fun to play sometimes as a piece of entertainment, and that's fine. That isn't. I'm not. That's not a criticism or anything. That's those people are just as entitled to
PC
play
Master
video games and have opinions and
Race.
whatever than anyone else. But
Yeah,
I think I don't know. I wouldn't say PC is as accessible as consoles. I think consoles are a lot more accessible because you don't have like as many issues. Like games on consoles have to be like by law have to be like to be on those platforms. The companies have to make them a lot more robust and sort of
yeah,
bugless.
hmm
You never have any issues with like compatibility issues with hardware or anything like that. It's just a system where you just you wipe the disc and you play, right? So I think
yeah,
they're a lot more accessible, and that's where the majority of people who don't have an interest or like to have a say, or just don't really want to go out of their way to have that say. I think that's where those people are like their majority from, right? And I think
yeah,
the actual PC community is divided into two people. Is the people I mentioned before who get angry for no apparent reason, and the people who have actual valid grievances with an issue, like be it
yeah,
Epic Store or whatever. And it's just very hard sometimes. Like to take a step back a sec, like you get a lot of issues where people like Jason Schreier, I don't know if you followed that a while back, where he had a discussion with Yongye, and that like afterwards there was a bit of drama around the fact that he was just overzealously rude to both Yong and like the gaming community as a whole, and he was wrong. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying anything about that. I'm just saying like it's hard to have opinions like towards the PC
mm,
gaming community when the PC gaming community reacts in such like childish, aggressive ways sometimes, right? Not
yeah.
to say that they're consumers that shouldn't have their opinions. I just think the way in which it's done needs to be way more constructive sometimes,
But I
and
mean,
it just isn't.
people just aren't interested in that. Anyway, like my take on the whole Epic thing, now that, like we sort of established that, I think the whole thing boils down to four words really, and that's idea good, execution bad. The whole
Right.
idea of having another store on the platform, the PC platform, to challenge and rival Steam primarily, and others like Origin, which I was surprised to learn had a very big collection of games. I didn't know until I actually got the Origin access thing for Anthem.
Very small market share, though.
Yeah,
Carry
small
on.
market share, but there is a lot of like stuff there, really.
Yeah.
Um, but like, I always like the idea of having all of my games in one place on Steam, right? Because Steam is the thing that's been around the longest, has the most features, the most social stuff. I can connect with my friends. I don't really. I have moved to Discord to connect with my friends, but back in the day, I used to like just purely rely on Steam to keep up with my mates, right? Other than like at
Hmm.
school or whatever. And so I've been using it for ages. I know how it works. I like how it works. It has the stuff, and it doesn't feel like they're doing any scummy stuff. Apart from there was the modding scandal, if you remember, with paid Skyrim mods, which
Yep.
went out as fast as it came in,
Yep.
and also got Steam sued for it. So they did try and fail at that, and they held their hands up and said, "Yeah, this is bad. We'll stop doing this. We're sorry." And they're actually working on shit like the new reskin, right? Because some people might argue that that's only because Epic is pushing them. But as I said to you, I think it was something like the original inklings of Valve's upgraded Steam with the new sort of the new libraries and the new displays and all that cool stuff was released, and I think it was something like January,
It was
but maybe
before the announcement
but
of
yeah,
the
it was
store,
basically
basically.
and before the announcement of the Epic Store. Exactly, it was by a fair few months. So I think that argument is invalid. That the only
But
reason that Steam is changing is because Epic has forced them to change. But the
you could
main
argue
reason,
you go on.
I think the main reason I don't like the Epic Store is because they're just offering developers money to use their statistically and empirically subpar service. Like, it might become something in the future, sure. And when it does, this argument will be completely invalid, and we can go about our day and say there's both of these stores now. That's cool. But like, they're saying, hey, Ubisoft, with your new game, The Division 2, why don't you come over to the Epic Store instead of the Steam Store? That's cool. We'll give you some money. And they're like, okay, sure. And they get less. They get less of a cut. Epic get less of a cut, and Uplay get to keep most of their money. And one thing I don't like about Steam, to keep this balanced, is Steam charge. I think it's, you might be able to clarify on this because I think but I think it's something like 30-40% of the profit from the game goes to Steam, right?
Yeah, so with Steam, they have changed it slightly, not recently, like still a while back, where the more you sell, the less you have to contribute to Steam, but it still scales between, I think it's 30 and 20%, i.e. 20% if you sell like a bajillion games, 30%
Right.
if
Yeah,
you don't
it's like
sell a lot of
goes up
games.
and down, it changes. Okay. So that's how it works. And so I think that's the thing that Steam need to change. They need to get less of a cut, and in return that will make their system more competitive again, because they have the larger portion of the market. So more people are more likely to play on their game, right? On their service and buy their games through their service. And it has stuff like the
Yeah.
community market, which generates a lot of money for them. And yeah, but I think they should take less of a cut, really. I think now that there's actually competition, they should consider that very seriously. And then that would make them develop another game. And I wonder what that game would be. I think it might be Half-Life 3. That's how you make Half-Life 3. Thank you, Epic, for saving the Half-Life franchise. But in all seriousness, I think the Epic, like I said, idea good, execution bad, and the fact that they're just, people are taking their money to put their game on a worse platform than Steam, because it is like just straight up a worse platform at the moment.
There's a lot of other sort of things you have to consider here. It's not as clean cut as that, because when you're talking about the way in which things are working behind the scenes, like for example, take Metro, right? That was a massive controversy because they pulled out last minute, and I disagree with the fact that they did pull out last minute. Like, don't get me wrong, I personally have the game on Steam because I pre-ordered it there way before they like swapped over, and like that whole shitstorm is its own thing. But like retrospectively, at this point, they've announced that they sold like 2.5 times the amount of units that Last Light did in the first like I don't know 3 weeks or whatever they call the like initial sales period.
Right.
2.5 times as many sales. And on top of the fact that they would have got an exclusivity deal, like payout from Epic Games, right?
Yeah.
Like financially, it is just a better deal for developers, and that is a good thing for consumers. If the developers get more money, they can make more games, they can employ more developers, and they like that is just a good thing for the consumer, right?
I think theoretically, yes, but like if a game like if
to be
a game
clear,
like,
I'm not saying that means that the entire thing is good. I'm saying that aspect of it
has the promise
is a good thing.
Yeah, I think that's putting a lot of trust in developers, and I don't have all that much trust for game
I'm not-
developers right at the minute.
Well, I'm not putting trust in all developers, but across the board, if this happens with more and more developers, you're going to hit some good ones, and the fact that you'll hit some good ones is good, right?
Yeah.
Like, for example, Coffee Stain getting more money for Satisfactory, like, good. They have made some stellar games. They're an up-and-coming, like, indie studio that's, getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it's
like, good.
very good for indie studios. I think what they should focus on is that indie studio market. I think they should definitely...
But then this is where you got to look at it as a business decision, right?
Yeah,
the Epic Store is
true.
not coming out to lose. It's not like they don't have Fortnite and this massive infinite pool of money to lose, right? They want to have a presence in the PC gaming industry. And there was a quote that Tim Sweeney, the guy that owns, the CEO of Epic Games, he put out on Twitter the other day. I can't remember it like exactly. I'd have to look it up and sort that. So, but it was along the lines of, in a world where Steam literally dominates the PC platform almost to an 100% market share, it's like something like a 90% market share of the PC. How, if not through exclusives, do you expect another store to have any chance of it competing with that, regardless of the quality of that store?
That's definitely true.
The osmosis rate of people swapping over would be astronomically low because people would have their friend structure, like everything
there,
on Steam. You just cannot pull people away from that unless you literally grab them and pull them away with exclusive games. But I completely understand that sentiment. I don't necessarily agree or disagree with exclusives, right? Like, theoretically, it's still on a PC at the end of the day. Like, if you have to download one more launcher, you have to do that for Uplay, you have to do that for Origin.
Yeah.
Like, at this point, it's not something we can avoid. The conveniency of a single store platform is just something that isn't attainable at this point. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's not a good idea to have it happen because of monopolies, right? Yeah. So if we're accepting that you're just going to have to put up with other stores, and we're accepting that Epic Games wants a market share, how else are they going to do it, right?
I understand that, but the thing is that I would say to that is, fine, if you want like to pull people away and get the exclusives and stuff, that's fine, but it's just, the one thing is they're missing is just a complete service. They don't have friends, they don't have reviews. Well, they have friends, sorry, they don't have reviews. They don't have wish lists. They don't have wish lists. Their store is like kind of hard to surf through. The one thing that I definitely noticed. The big thing is their support is very consumer unfriendly. From what I've seen, like, people are like, oh, okay, I need a refund, or I need to access my account and stuff. Yeah.
Before we go into this, they have completely reworked a lot of that over the past couple of weeks.
Okay, but yeah, there was a guy on the Division 2 the Division subreddit who thought the only way to buy it was Epic. You couldn't just get it through Uplay. And he was like, do not buy this game on Epic, because I've had to, like, he said something like, I've had to try and regain access to my account, and this hasn't been possible because they've asked me for every single byte of data I've ever fucking conceived on that website. Obviously, that's not 100% true. They needed stuff like all the IPs you'd ever logged in, and if you created your account at like fucking Stagecoach free Wi-Fi in the middle of like a bus ride, you're fucked. You will never get your account back.
Yeah, so again, these are reports of like people, right? So they could entirely be exaggerated. I'm not saying that they necessarily are. And I think, to be honest, I think that guy was very angry. That was like an angry post.
I wouldn't blame him, to be honest.
Yeah, but I honestly don't think they asked for every IP he's ever logged in from.
Yeah, Steam, they do want like, the majority of that account, accurately.
One of the things that Steam support will ask, if you don't give them, like, for example, if you forget your password, your username, and your email attached to the account, one of the things that they can ask you to verify is your home IP address, because it tells you where you've logged in from. And if they can see you've logged in from there, they're like, well, chances are, if you know the IP address for that address, and we have logins from that address, it's probably right, okay?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that it's particular. It's not it's not concrete, and B, it's not a good way of doing it because the layman isn't going to know that. But like, he might be exaggerating in the he's been asked for an IP, and he's like, oh, they want my IP information for the last 20. Like, a lot of bad support turns into like exaggerated angry stories. So that's all I just want to say on that. Like, take it with a pinch of salt. And I'm like, there are like, if we're talking about like proper like valid grievances, there are other reasons to be upset with the Epic Store. Like, for example, the rumors, I want to say, is probably the most applicable word, that the Chinese parent company are using it as a form of like data stealing and stuff like that.
News to me.
The theories that like the timed exclusives that people have, like, you know, like developers have been paid for, are contracts that can be renewed and stuff like that. Like, people are saying, like, you know, almost, I think all of the exclusivity deals so far have been 1 year exclusivity, but people are saying that they're like contracts that they can renew, and it's all like Epic sided. Like, if Epic wants it to be renewed, it's gonna be renewed, sort of thing. So and again, that's also a rumor, so I don't know how.
Yeah, nobody knows what the contracts contain.
A lot of these controversies are stuff that is hearsay. This is the biggest reason why I don't want people to just get on the fucking anger bandwagon and just take these to the bank, because realistically, this is all hearsay. All of this could be propagated by people who are just angry that Steam has got like a competitor, right?
Yeah.
So just leave it for a while before you go like crusading against it. Like, I understand there are issues, but like give it a few months before you get your pitchfork out of the cupboard, you know? Like, it's not gonna fucking like, at the very worst, if China's fucking stealing people's data, who the fuck cares? No one's like a fucking political advisor or some shit that it actually matters. Like, do you know what I mean?
You
like,
won't be saying that when there's like some fucking Chinese influence in the next elections or some shit.
well,
like, it actually turns out that like they've manipulated 100% of Epic watchers into, you know, like voting for the fucking American Communist Party or the British Communist Party or something. Like, it's I don't think that's communism is only best way.
I don't think them stealing my data, them knowing what websites I've been on, and
Cambridge
you know,
Analytica, my dude, it fucking happened.
Nah, I don't know,
dog. It happened.
It didn't happen. Like,
it did.
No.
It didn't happen. No, that's right. They tried to cover it up. You're right. And that's what I mean, look at Huawei, right? Like, Huawei have basically been all but exposed for doing that kind of shit, right? Like, just
so the difference here is that they were snooping for the Chinese government, and that they were specifically caught looking for espionage data. They were looking for like fucking, what's it called? They were like trying to steal like sensitive like company documents and stuff that were like exclusive to American companies, and they were trying to like pirate like designs and things like that. Like, that's one thing. Like, trying to attack businesses to steal like business secrets is one thing.
Yeah.
Like, having your video game launcher at home, looking at your
but that's the thing,
homework.
Right? That's the thing, right? It's like, sure, they're all they're looking at is it's fine. All they're looking at is the programs you've got on your computer and like how big your homework folder is and stuff. But like, you know, this is fine. It's all okay. And then they're directly like, the political layout in China is such that the government could say, "Hey, Tencent, the biggest international like entertainment company in the entirety of China, hey guys, would you like to give us our data?" They can't exactly say no because it's bad and it's illegal. They would be like,
but I feel like
yes, or we will get executed.
Yeah, okay, sure. But I feel like at that point, like, when stuff starts happening like that, like exactly with Huawei, right? When stuff like that starts happening, we hear about it, right? It's not something that will go unnoticed. Like, at the moment, people have been like looking at processes and stuff on the Epic launchers, and at the very best, it's been snooping in like activity logs, right? And that might have been for legitimate reasons, or it might not have been. Some people are speculating it's not. Some people are saying, oh no, wait, actually it could be just doing this for resource management, or it could be doing this because it's trying to install something, or it could be, you know, like, people have been like giving legitimate reasons for it, doing these things,
but
right?
there's still the sort of nagging doubt.
But there's always going to be, when you have a platform where there's like hate and anger directed towards it. Like, there's always going to be naysayers for the Epic Games Store, but this is what I'm saying, just give it like 6 months, because if it actually is malicious in any way, after 6 months or so, like, like people will have figured this shit out, right? There are actual people that will have figured this shit out, and we don't need to then worry about it because we'll know for a fact. There's no point in crusading that's like hearsay and speculation just because you're upset about Steam getting like a competitor. There are genuine reasons to be upset. Like, for example, Metro pulling their game off because they got offered money at last minute. That stuff probably should be banned. Like, you should not be allowed to promote on a platform.
Yeah, that's very, very anti-consumer.
Yeah, well, it's not even that. It's borderline like actual misuse of
it's like
contract,
business.
right?
It's like not like business espionage, but it's like
business misuse or something. Like I don't know what you'd call
it.
There
is a law for it. It's just like malpractice.
Yeah, there'll be a lawyer that will fucking know how that shit works. But like when for example with Metro, they promoted and used the Steam platform as their sales platform for a long amount of time, and then when it got right to the end, they took a payout to pull out. That's not okay because they've already got value out of that platform, and not only that, but they've misled customers. Those two things are both illegal.
I think it should be
not necessarily like globally illegal, but I think they should be illegal. Both of those things for different reasons.
I think it should, like, the Outer Worlds, which was the most recent game to be pulled off, as well as the other game Control. I don't know what that's about, but Outer Worlds specifically, at the end of the trailer, said PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Steam. And the fact that it said Steam on the trailer at the bottom suggests to me that this game will be coming out on Steam. It should be that when you have this, when you get to the point where your trailer is released and you're ready to start giving out material and advertising for this new game, you should already have a publishing deal lined up, and you should stick to that publishing deal.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
the massive thing is Steam don't have like contracts. So it's like they can just come and go as they please. Like you said, it's easy. Anybody can set up a Steam page, create some bullshit, and then say, no, this game isn't coming out.
Yeah.
That is not only anti-consumer, it's immoral, it's bad business practice, and it should not be allowed on any platform on the PC or like anywhere really. It's just not fair to consumers, and that's the main problem I have with that game.
Could you imagine if someone like a developer for a PS4 exclusive, like just suddenly was like building something for the PS4 and then just swapped to Xbox One?
Yeah,
like it just would never happen.
No, because the contract is locked in.
There's so much shit going on there. Yeah, like it's so like overpoweringly not okay, right? But it seems to be happening for Steam. To be honest, I think what will happen is Steam will get stricter and this will stop happening because they can't let this keep happening. They're getting walked all over, right?
Yeah, and I think
this will probably go away.
I think what Steam need to do is, if Epic continue down this road of signing contracts to get exclusivity, Steam need to do the same. They need to start signing shit up, signing people up saying, yep, come to our store, stay with our store. And there should be a sort of a fee, maybe, for setting up a Steam page, and then when the game is released, that fee is returned to you, if it's still being published on that service, or not having a fee and then giving a fine if the people refuse to they decide to take their game off of Steam, or just sign contracts. Like there's 3 options that they could do there to stop this from happening, and that's why I don't like Epic. Is not because obviously Steam are not signing contracts. That's not like, just generally, I don't like Epic because how they're getting these things is, sure, they have to do it out of necessity to get more people onto their platform, but it's still like, it's just not right. It's just not fair to consumers to get a developer to abuse their shit and then use Steam and then
this whole thing with the whole pulling things and exclusives and stuff. I actually don't think this is necessary. This is one of the things I do not think is the Epic Store's fault. Yeah. I think the Epic Store is going to have to do this to have a market share.
It's going to have to do it, but it's how they do it is not right.
No. How they're doing it is fine, right? That's nothing to do with them, right? What the problem is that these developers are doing the last minute switcheroo, right? Like you said, Outer Worlds, at the end of the trailer it says Steam. Like Metro, it was pre-orderable on Steam, right? This level of commitment, this level of attachment, that is something that the developer has then made. Like, they've conveyed that to their consumers, right?
Yeah.
That, snapping that and switching it, that is the developer's problem. That is on them for doing that. But it's Epic's problem
for offering that in the first place.
No, it's not. You don't go out to the food shopping and, look at all the food stores, and then one of them offers you like better prices, and you go to that, and then you're like, well, it's that shop's fault. Like the other shops don't all turn around and go, your fault for having better prices. No, it's nothing to do with that. It's to do with the fact that
it's not. I don't think that's actually completely fair to make that like analogy, that comparison, because at the end of the day, like it's not. It's just like having better prices. It drives people to have be more competitive, to get their prices down, to get their rates down, and stuff like that. But like, if you're physically offering developers to, for want of a better phrase, betray the publishing sort of not deal but lineup that they've already got, i.e. on Steam, and if you're like saying, "Hey kid, come into the fucking dark alley and smoke some crack with that good old Uncle Epic," it's like.
But this isn't something where Epic are going out and fucking like lassoing games and drawing them into their coop. Like that's not how this
works. So the developers are like, going to Epic then?
Epic have no, like listen, like Epic have all right. I don't. None of this is public, right? So this is speculation. But as someone who studied this and knows generally how the stuff behind the scenes works with this, right? Normally there will be standardized deals and like publisher sort of structure that will be adhered to, right? So Epic will have some way, like some exclusivity 1-year deal, because it's been a 1-year deal every other game that they have on offer, right? And by getting in contact with them, like there will be a discussion where they will offer you this, right? They don't go around stapling it to people's heads saying you have to be on our platform. It's an offer that is available. Steam could offer the exact same thing if they wanted to, and could get in contact and say, here you go, here's our deal, right? But they don't. It's not necessarily it's not Epic's fault for being business savvy, is what I'm saying. Like they are entirely entitled to these deals. They're entirely entitled to offer these deals. And if a publisher or developer wants to take these up, that is their problem if they break previous commitments, and solely so, right? I think it's unfair to blame Epic for providing a better business option for a developer.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I personally disagree with that, but I can see the logic behind it. Anyway, I think we're going to have to wrap it up there. We've been going for an hour, 45 minutes, so this is a pilot. It's going to be a bit longer, but we'll see how the time goes and whatever. So this is the end of the Ascension podcast, episode 1. Hope you enjoyed. This is an interesting little format. We've got some pretty cool, ideas that we want to keep working with. We're going to have some guests on, maybe next episode or the episode after that. We're going to just start talking about other things, get other people involved in the conversation. We had, I think, a peak about 10 people watching, which I think is pretty good for a new podcast to have 10 people watching the stream. And we've got about 8 now. It's been pretty consistent. So thank you, everybody, for sticking around.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
If you would like to join the Ascension clan, the Discord will be provided in chat. Alien, if you want to grab that, because I'm tapped out at the minute. But yeah, the invite will be provided in chat, so you just go ahead and click it if you're not already part. I mean, that's mainly where most of you guys are from. But if you're watching VODs or whatever, and you're interested in this kind of stuff, we have clans for The Division 2, Destiny 2, and Anthem. We don't really talk about the last one. But yeah, we offer that if you're still like one of the 3 people that play that game. I'm VraxNHD. You can find me on youtube.com/VraxNHD, Twitter /VraxNHD, and Twitch, of course, /VraxNHD. And on Discord as Vex. And Alien, if you want to plug anything, now's the time.
Nah, I will be around. You'll probably find me if you want to.
Alien is around and about. I think he has a Twitch, but I don't think he does anything with it. But
no,
Twitch,
Twitch
/homeless alien or whatever. Go and find it. He's probably there somewhere. I think we will see you bright and early next week, same time, same place, basically.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right, if anything changes, we'll let you know. And of course, you can find the VOD and all the stuff related to this on my YouTube channel. Will be up probably tomorrow, day after that, something like that, when I just refine it, get everything together, do some light editing, and we'll see where it goes. Okay, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, this is VraxNHD and Homeless Alien signing out.
Yep, see you again.
Bye.